Hello and welcome back to The Public Eye, a 5-part series of podcasts brought to you by Granite Exchange. I'm your host, Sarah Travers, and throughout this series I'm so fortunate to be speaking with local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out how they continue to innovate. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. Well, today in the studio, I'm joined by Julie Anne Robertson, Managing Director at EP Design Limited. Julianne, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Well, you're very welcome to the podcast studio. As always, I'll give a little bit of background, and so don't go away. So EP Design is an award-winning wedding and event design, planning and management studio based in Portadown, County Armagh, and creates events around the country. EP Design are event stylists and wedding planners who believe in the power of experiences and love working with clients to produce really unforgettable events. They have a reputation for innovative designs and excellent execution, from weddings to large corporate events, celebrations, intimate gatherings, Christmas and seasonal styling. EP Design is really the go-to for every event, and they go all in when they do. Julianne, congratulations, but working in events for the last couple of years must have been a challenge.
Very much so, yes. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Who knew we did all that?
I know, it's great, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Was that me?
Yes. Yes, I mean, it's been a difficult or a tricky couple of years. We've been on the go since 2010. So we've been through different sort of ebbs and flows with the business, but certainly it's been a change of pace. I think as we were speaking just before the show, at the moment we're inundated with weddings and events. We're trying to sort of pack in about 2 years worth of business into about 6 months.
Yeah, thank
goodness. Thank goodness, exactly. And we shouldn't complain. It's a very good complaint, but it comes with its challenges as well, you know. So, but we're up for the challenge. We're busy and we like to be busy, and it's lovely to be back out on site chatting with clients and doing what we like to do.
Just doing what you wanted to do in the first place. So how did it all start then? You said back in 2010. So how did that begin?
Yes. So my background actually wasn't in events. I was born and raised in Portadown, where I still live. Went through Portadown College, was always quite a creative person, sort of music, theatre, singing, dancing, all of that kind of thing. So very naturally led to going on to Queen's to do law. It was just off a bit of a tangent there. But it was sort of back in the day where your career teacher said, if you got decent A levels, go and do medicine, law or accountancy. That was basically your path. So went up, had a great 3 years crack up in Queen's, won't lie, but probably never realistically saw myself settling in law as a career. But my dad at the time was heavily involved in property development, and got a bit of an interest in that, and was working with him a little bit. So went on to do a postgrad in surveying, and then went to work, interviewed and got a job with Lisney in Belfast, commercial property company. Yeah. And worked with them for a number of years. Before moving actually closer to home in Portadown with a company. My area or specialty was commercial valuation. So when the property market sort of hit a little bump in the road, let's say, around 2008, I found myself made redundant. And at the time, my husband, who's also a business owner, he has a gym for the last sort of 15, 16 years. We sat down and sort of said, right, well, what do you want to do? And it was funny, the week I was about to sign a new contract to go into the same line of work, I said, don't want to do this. It's time to, take a complete change of pace and go back into something much more creative. So I ended up actually going and working with a bridal company and a boutique over in the Linen Green, Dungannon, working with some fabulous designers. It was Oscar de la Renta, Carolina Herrera. It was fabulous. And it sort of sparked an interest for me in that I knew I wanted to get into the bridal or the wedding scene. I just wasn't exactly sure which area I wanted to do. So I was, around that time I got engaged myself, and what I quickly found was I couldn't exactly find what I was looking for in terms of how I wanted the day to come to life or how I wanted to plan it out. So I did a lot of it myself. I ended up sort of buying a little bit of stock that I wanted to just use myself, not really knowing if I was going to launch it into a full business. But I thought I'll dip my toe in, see how we go. And honestly, it's one of those I haven't looked back. It's just grown from there. So that's why I laugh whenever, our clients will come in and say, this is my dream job. I'd love to do this. I don't scoff at that. I think if it is, go for it. It's certainly how I got there. I'm very much self-taught, although I did, go back and sort of retrain in certain things. But very much it's grown from strength to strength, just from experience and sort of learning on the ground and as I go.
And isn't it interesting that it took, a kind of a big life curveball, a redundancy,
yes, yeah,
to be, I suppose, the catalyst for change, because you've nothing to lose at that point. You've got to do something.
Definitely. And in full disclosure, I suppose, it was probably the first time in my life, and I was only maybe, early 20s, but it was the first time I'd come up against something really that I'd failed at, if you like, or certainly how I felt at the time, and looking back now and with hindsight and age and all of that, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. It pushed me into or down the path that I needed to be on in terms of career and work life. But it also gave me a real drive of I had something to prove, I think, as well, and if I was going to set up a business, it had to work, So I think all of those were actually really good things for me at the time, but at the time I probably didn't realise it.
No, that's it. And hindsight is a wonderful thing, and that's a great life lesson if anybody's listening to this now, maybe going through something, because it is a challenging time, lots of change, lots of flux. But out of change comes amazing things and opportunities. And
big
one door closes and another opens. And maybe you don't even know what that's going to be yet. And that's quite magical.
Mm-hmm. And I think, again, nearly the older we get or the more experience we have in life, I think we're much more open to that. I think maybe when you're slightly younger, you're a little bit hesitant or you're fearful of things not working, And I think as, say, we sort of maybe move through life, you're like, what's the worst can happen? Give it a go, have a bit of fun with it. And if it doesn't work, well, then we change pace or we go in a different direction,
But there's so much as well about the way you're brought up and the way, you talked already about what was expected of you. So expectations, whether they were something that you'd imagined or actually somebody was saying, no, law, accountancy or
absolutely,
medicine. So failure was a massive thing, to feel that you had underachieved in some way, shape or form, or you weren't cut out for it.
Yes, very much so. I mean, my both of my parents are teachers, so we come from a household of, you work hard, you're conscientious at school, get your skill work done, and that was just how it was. It wasn't ever an option probably not to go to university and go and get a good job. That was the expectation, and thankfully I enjoyed school, all of the subjects and all round. But definitely, I would never have imagined at that stage, at 18, 19, 20, going to university, that I was, a few years down the line going to open up a creative business and run it myself. It just wasn't something on my radar.
But even at school, I suppose entrepreneurship and things like that just wasn't really taught.
And it wasn't promoted and it wasn't encouraged, to be honest. I think it's very different now. I think there are so many entrepreneurs, and it's a big scope of a word now, maybe more so than it ever was before. But it's great that people are encouraged to go and try new things, but I think there's still industries that are maybe not recognised still, to the same degree that maybe they should be.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, I just think, from me in the wedding industry or creative arts industries, they're maybe not given the same recognition as some of the slightly considered more academic career paths, and it's something that I'm quite passionate about, and the different students and interns and things that we would have at EP Design. We're really championing them to try and get into business and pursue something, especially, young women getting into business. I love to see, women across the board taking on something themselves and not feeling that they have to work for someone else,
That's it. And that's such an interesting point that you made then. At the minute, I suppose, women are being encouraged into all sorts of industries and sectors that they've been underrepresented in before, maybe moving into, technology and science and the STEM. But actually, have we, as a society, lost that ability to recognise success in the creatives in the beauty industry, in the wedding industry, in the planning. I mean, maybe do we feel we have to move away from that completely?
Nearly to prove a point.
Yeah.
I know, and I think as women there has been a period of time where you're trying to hide your softness or try to hide femininity, to a certain degree, instead of embracing it and all of the wonderful things that come with that. As well as running a business, I'm very much wife to my long-suffering husband Gary, or he would have you to believe, and mummy to 3 lovely kids, and that's my first priority and my first job. But if anything, even the pandemic has shown me, I think previous to that, if I had calls to do or consultations, the thought of having a Zoom call with kids clattering about in the background was a complete no-no for me. I thought it wasn't acceptable, it wasn't professional. And I think everyone relaxed through the pandemic, and we just had to. We had no choice. We were homeschooling and doing bridal consultations, within the same hour,
And you have an 8-month-old baby.
And we have an 8-month-old baby,
My word.
Although she's not usually the problem in the Zoom calls, it's usually the 6 and 8-year-old, to be fair. I think a few of our clients got to see Max and Tom in all sorts of situations.
They had a glimpse of their future, let's just put it that way.
Yes, they did. But I think it actually was a really good eye-opener for me of just, this is okay. It's okay to be mummy and to be a business owner. And, now if I can't, do a call at a particular time because I have to drop kids off to school, I'm very okay with saying that. You know what I mean? So
well,
I think it's a lot more
great
accepting.
that you've reached that.
Yes,
And whether society as well has got so used to seeing the kids in the background on all the Zoom calls as well. This podcast is sponsored by Granite Legal Services, a niche business and immigration law practice located in the heart of Newry City. Granite Legal Services provides legal advice to both individuals and companies alike across a wide range of industries, from employment, commercial or corporate law matters to immigration law. Granite Legal Services focuses on providing legally sound, practical advice to its clients. To get in touch, visit www.granitelegalservices.co.uk or contact 028 3026 2200. So let's go back to, launching and setting up, and obviously you started with your own wedding. So what a great way to test the market, so to speak. And you could see then what was required. You said you weren't able to source or get anything that you wanted. What did you want? What did you provide for your wedding?
I think, and it's something I'm very passionate about still with EP design, that it's not just a hire list of decor coming in and being put into a room, to make it look pretty. I think it's very much about creating an experience for your guests. So, trying to take it a step further, we get a lot of clients who'll come in and say, I want something different. And we all sort of think we want something different. But actually, when we start to break it down, a lot of us don't.
We don't.
It's
like going to the hairdressers.
Exactly.
I want something different.
Do
What the
whatever
heck are you doing? Don't do that.
It's this length and it's this colour, So I think for me, I wanted to do something a little bit different, but just nearly pushing the boundaries of what was already established, but putting my own spin on it. And I was finding it difficult to, I suppose, find suppliers who weren't just giving me sort of the rule book of, well, I've done these 3 weddings, this is the look you can have, and I was like, well, could we tweak it slightly? Not really, so, and I mean, there are fantastic suppliers across Ireland that we work with today, and I think there's been a real movement towards pushing boundaries. I think our clients, our brides in particular, are so astute now and know what they want. They're very fashion forward, and they're decisive, and it's fantastic, because there's a much closer link now than there ever was between, the fashion industry, the arts, theatre, weddings, events, design, all of that combined, and taking inspiration from all of that. So I think when I was getting married, I just wanted to make sure that when people walked into that room, it looked like Gary and I, it looked like our style, and they knew that, this is their wedding, and it just oozes what we expect from them, as opposed to, this is lovely, but it's exactly the same as the wedding that was on last Saturday.
So tell me, what did you have?
No, and now I haven't changed at all. Well, we actually went for a really very white wedding, but we did sort of over the top, large scale, floral installations, and at the time it was very much sort of low settings or candelabra or whatever it would be on tables. So we went for sort of large scale floral arrangements on the tables, did a little bit of ceiling work, brought in lighting that hadn't been done much before, which is now very, very standard, you know,
Right.
but it's certainly an industry that moves at a rapid pace. You know, you have to keep up. So it's not that it was anything earth-shattering or groundbreaking, but it was very us. And we went in, it made us feel comfortable, and our family and friends recognise it as our style. I think that was what was important to me.
Well, it worked for you, and that's absolutely what it boils down to. If everybody's happy, instead of trying to please everyone else.
Yeah.
Then, you know, people looked and they said, we like this. And what happened next then? How did it become a business?
Yeah. Well, I think I bullied a few of my bridesmaids and friends probably into letting me do their weddings as well. They said I didn't bully them, but I'm sure I did.
Did they pay you?
He goes, not well.
No.
No, not well. But so it honestly was one of those sort of a slippery slope, if you like. We started doing some events for friends, for family, and then I sort of was doing obviously my market research at the time, because I thought, this is for me. This is what I really want to invest my time in. And I got married at Castle Leslie Estate down in Monaghan,
Beautiful.
where we now do an awful lot of work actually, which is lovely.
How lovely.
Although now we use the service entrance instead of, you know, coming in the front door. But I just remember at the time arranging a consultation to go down and speak to the team there. And I put my lookbook together of, you know, the limited amount of work that we had done at the time, but of what we were intending to do, what our vision for the company was, and the service that I could provide, and going down to speak to them. And I remember one of the ladies I spoke to there at the time, Karen, said, no one has done this before. No one has taken the time to come down, sit down and say, this is what I can do for you. This is what I see our company, you know, bringing to the table. This is what we want to do differently. Can we work together? And said, you know, I'd be delighted to recommend you, you know.
Wow. So that was like collaboration. That's what the key is.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there were obviously established businesses at the time who were doing a super job and still are, but maybe either didn't think they needed to maybe go that extra mile to have a conversation, or it maybe just wasn't something that was particularly done at the time.
So what, in the past they would have maybe had the conversation with the bride but not gone to
but maybe not
the
directly
location?
with the location, you know. And so that was, you know, we were very lucky in that regard that straight away we were getting some referral work from a lovely venue, you know. So that definitely sort of gave us a kickstart.
So when the bride is, it's been a long time since I've had to do anything like this, but what way does it work? Do they usually pick location first and then the look?
So we're slightly twofold in the services that we offer. So we offer a full wedding and event planning.
I should
service.
say the groom as well. I'm sure the groom or the grooms.
They're knocking
yes.
about too.
Yes.
Yeah, occasionally. So we offer a full wedding and event planning service. So that could entail, depending on when the couple come to us, they may have their venue chosen, they may not. And if they don't, we will go on site visits and recommend venues for them and really start the process from beginning to end. Other clients will come and will just need help with the design and styling end of things. So we can do as little or as much really as is required. As I say, we work right across Ireland. There are certain venues that we're very fortunate that will recommend us and we work closely with, but we're not restricted to any particular venue. So,
so what's the most amazing wedding you've done?
oh goodness, I always worry every bride. We've ever
Okay,
worked
so
with,
I should rephrase
mine.
that to make it easier for you. Maybe what's been the most impressive?
Impressive,
Yes.
Yeah. To be honest with you, this is maybe a bit of a cop out, Sarah. I don't know, but there's bits of so many different weddings that we've worked on that we've just loved, and what makes it really successful, I think, from our end of things, is when the client allows us to kind of push their boundaries a little bit. And whenever we, again, a bit like going back to my own wedding, when they feel comfortable enough to put their trust in me, that we can, you know, do something a wee bit different, build something from scratch, but ultimately pull out their personalities a wee bit and tease it out of them, that when they walk in, it just speaks to them. It's like, this is me, you know. I suppose we've got a little bit known for our kind of ceiling installations. We work in a lot of marquee venues and marquees at home. So we're always quite keen to do something quite special up in the ceiling and up in the roof. You know, whether that's, we created a rose garden ceiling. a couple of years back, and I think we had hand sewn over 600 roses on delicate silk ribbons to suspend from the ceiling.
Did you?
Oh, it was fabulous. Yes, everybody loved me for suggesting that one. But it's one of those things that there's a lot of hard work goes in behind the scenes that maybe people don't think about. You know, for a long time, even with my own friends and family, you know, we were a chair cover and bow company. That's what
that's the old fashioned sort of
exactly,
yes. I'll dress
you know,
your rooms, you cover the chairs.
And to this day, you know, my husband will say, "Go on, you know, there and fluff things up." You know, that's what I'm doing. So, and I think actually for a while, probably again coming off. Being made redundant, feeling like I had something to prove. Probably it was my own sort of insecurity initially that I took that very personally, you know, that it wasn't considered a serious business.
Are you a perfectionist?
Possibly. Yeah. A control freak maybe is better, but yes, I like things to be, I think perfect maybe isn't even the right word for me. I like things to be as good as they can possibly be. I think I've got realistic enough to know that perfection is very subjective, you know, and
do you obviously you have to be able to be flexible within that because things change, situations change, the roses don't arrive exactly the way, you know, if you've got a vision in your head and then actually that's not quite right, we need to tweak, but all the time reassuring your client.
Absolutely, and that comes back to a really important point that we stress to our clients from the very beginning. It has to be a good fit with the client that we take on equally as much as they choose us. We have to choose them because they need to trust us, and if they do and they put that trust in us and know that on the day if something arises that I will fix it, and I'll fix it, and it might be exactly as it was going to be previously, but it'll always usually be better because we have the opportunity to play around with it or to make changes for the better, you know.
And how do you manage those that maybe are similar to yourself and want to control everything, and how do you manage that, because it is a stressful time, and
absolutely,
and I suppose people are paying quite a bit of money for this.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think one of the key things we find is we're very, very stringent about customer service. It's a big thing for me. I want the client journey with us from the very beginning, from the minute they arrive at our barn, you know, where their names are on the screen. They're offered a glass of Prosecco or a cup of coffee with, you know, chilled water and a slice of lemon. We want it to be lovely, the experience from start to finish. And you know yourself, if you're looked after, you feel comfortable. Yes. But one of the key things, I think, is communication. And so we try to respond as quickly as possible. We try to provide as much detail as possible. We're very keen on making things as visual as we possibly can. A lot of couples struggle to maybe imagine what it really is going to be like in reality come the day. Despite maybe, you know, if you're handed a Word document with a list of what it's going to be, it doesn't really do anything for them. So,
and that's why even now in this podcast, we want to see pictures.
Absolutely, yes, exactly. So we're very committed to putting together really in-depth design proposals with lots of imagery, and that's actually something we're really working hard on this year to take a step further, to make it much more of like a virtual walkthrough of spaces, so they can really immerse themselves, you know. So we're working hard at that at the moment. I'm not the gifted technology person in our company, but I've great people who are working alongside us, you know, to try and make that happen, and it's something we're very, very excited about, you know, because it's going that direction. You know, people they want to see what it's going to be like, and it just gives them a much, much clearer idea.
Oh my goodness! So I'm imagining these virtual reality headsets in the future or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You can walk through
Well, I think even venues during COVID, I mean, if you go onto websites now with venues across Ireland, a lot of them will have the virtual walkthroughs now they didn't have before. That's because they couldn't have people out to do consultations. So it's nearly, it's working alongside that and just taking it a step further. Then, you know, you can be in this space, but then we start to add all of the fluffy stuff, as my husband calls it.
It's much more than the fluffy stuff. So tell me about the growth then of the company. You've mentioned a few key people, but it started originally with yourself. What have you grown to?
Yes, so I am that cliche of working out of the back of my Ford Focus, I think at the time, you know, over 10 years ago, and in the spare room. I have very supportive friends and family. My mum in particular has been integral in helping me and pushing me forward. She's very much a woman of, you know, you can do whatever you want to do. You know, let's get on with it. You know, get stuck in and get it done. and she's a force to be reckoned with. But
So is she literally one of those sewing the roses, or is she minding the kids?
absolutely, yeah. Actually, all of the above.
Right, everything that needs done.
All of the above, yes. I mean, Mum was a
fabulous.
vice principal at the end of her career, but would have been straight out to the barn afterwards, to give me a hand, or on a Saturday, Sunday morning, up a scaffold, doing whatever she needs to do. So she's fantastic, and she's the energy of a 20-year-old. So I sort of think if I can follow that, I suppose, work ethic, I'm onto a good thing. So Mum still to this day works very closely with me in the business, and it's very, very creative and very organised. We have a great team. I think in total now there are 11 of us, between full-time and part-time team. So we've actually our sales and marketing manager in the office, Julianne, is a previous bride of ours, which actually came
So
about
nice.
really nicely.
Yeah.
Because we work so closely with clients, we do form relationships, and some stick, and we do form friendships and keep in touch afterwards. And Jane's family own a fantastic bakery in County Armagh, so she arrived one day at the barn with treats for us all, and we got chatting, and she had just had her first baby and was going back, and it was I just remember a really natural conversation. Said, would you ever consider, moving careers or moving jobs? And it was just sort of one of those light bulb moments, and it really naturally progressed from there.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely, and then so the rest of the guys, we've really varied workforce of sort of engineers, of people with electrical backgrounds, joinery, painting, all of that kind of thing. So we've good hands on board to kind of fix lots of problems and build lots of nice new things.
See, that's the thing. We need to understand that it's not just the fluffing.
Definitely not.
There's,
No.
and then I suppose knowing that venue too, where you know where all the sockets are, what's likely to blow, you need those people.
To be fair, that's probably one of the things that has been very useful for my surveying days. I can measure up a room better than you can imagine,
Of course.
And it, there's a lot of hard graft goes into, wedding design and set design and all of that kind of thing, and a lot of building work, depending on what we're doing. So the prep end of things, we're fortunate enough to have a lovely big barn based there just outside Tandragee, and we build and we make a lot of our own props, and a lot of, we sew our own drapes. We do all of that kind of thing, which gives us a great control over the product that then we're going to deliver on site come the event day,
So what about, because I often worry about the key person in the business, I would say, is you.
Yes.
Does everybody want you?
A lot of the time.
Yeah. And how difficult is that?
It comes with its challenges. To be fair, our process, when a client gets in touch, probably their first point of contact will be Jane or Gemma in the office, and they're excellent. They care as much as I do. They want the client experience to be really, really good, and we have great systems in place that we can handle things. And usually there'll be a bit of a discovery call to find out sort of the basic information: where, who, how it's happening,
when,
exactly when. I know, and then the next step will always be to set up a consultation in person with me, either at the couple's venue or invited up to our barn, whatever that will be.
That's always you.
That will always be me, simply because I handle the design end of things. So whenever we're doing the initial design concept, that will come from me, and I will largely be there on the day putting that together, supported very, very much by the team. But that's my baby. That's the bit I love,
And you couldn't see yourself kind of stepping back from that.
Not yet.
Not yet. I know it is a challenge, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I have got better, and I've had to start to delegate better,
Yes.
and it's been for the benefit of the business.
Yes.
And it's not until you do it that I think you realise that.
Isn't it the secret, getting people who are better than you?
Absolutely, yes. And it's such
But not
a true
fear
thing.
them.
Exactly.
Not fear them.
Yes. I mean, I love to hear if Jane or Gemma or Mum are on a call to a client, and they're chatting away, I can feel their enthusiasm. They want it to be as good as it can possibly be. I get lovely emails in from clients saying, I just wanted to write and say thank you to Jane and Gemma for doing this. They won't mention me at all, and I love that. I genuinely love that.
That's been that real connection.
Absolutely.
They've been there from
it is
the
not
word
a
go.
solo effort. It definitely is a team effort. And every event we do, it wouldn't happen without all of us, clubbing together and getting it done.
Well, obviously there's a massive industry out there. Yes, COVID changed things, but now events are back. How many have you got on the go at the minute?
I think last count, and we try not to count actually at the moment, and we've well over 150 events this year on the books. Now that will also include our from our weddings to our corporate events to our seasonal styling. That's everything across the board.
So 150, and how many kind of encounters, how much, that's not just, how much work goes into 150?
That. Yes, so in terms of full wedding planning, we'll actually limit that to about 10 a year maximum.
Oh my goodness.
Simply because of the time that goes into that. That's very much coming from me. If it's a wedding planner, I will be there on the day, all day of your wedding. But it could be a 2-year process. So it's a lot of time and energy that goes into that.
So presumably you charge appropriately then. The weddings are big business.
Yes, that's it. I think even there's been a change of sort of a different perception is now adopted towards the wedding and events industry. I think probably even the pandemic has shown us that we do need to value what we're doing and charge our worth.
And how difficult has that been for you in the past?
Do you know, so I think once you make the decision, it's much easier. I think previously, you because you wanted it to be so fabulous for people and you wanted to give them everything, you tried to discount and you tried, and you were slightly embarrassed to say it costs this or it costs that.
Yeah.
And actually through lockdown and through the pandemic, when we sat down and really looked at the hours that are spent and the time that goes in and the resources that we put into things, we said, right, enough's enough. We really need to start looking at, it is a business, and something, the reaction has been exceptional. People value what we're doing and they value our time, and if we don't, then we're only to blame ourselves.
No, I think it's a great lesson, and obviously you can feel guilty and bad if somebody comes in, they have a very small budget, but you are running a business.
Yes, that's it. And I think probably with the budget conversation, it's never comfortable, with anybody, but it's one that has to be had because everyone has a budget, regardless of what it is. So we always have a conversation, but I try to stress to clients, the purpose of it isn't to how much money can you spend. That's never the purpose of a budget conversation. It's to how can we make your budget work as hard as we possibly can for you. If I know I have X amount to spend, I said, okay, then let's prioritise that into the things that really, really matter to you. Whether it's your floral design or whether it's your, the lighting of the room or whatever it's going to be, that's where our responsibility comes in to really guide them to make sure it's what it needs to be for them within that budget, as opposed to pushing them outside the budget and making it uncomfortable for them.
And there'll be people that'll be shouting at this now and go, Sarah, ask her, how much does it cost? How much does it cost? But roughly, yes. I know, and obviously because we have to understand all of the costs that you have, we've already heard who you have to pay.
That's it, yes. It's very much a scaled process. So if we're doing just the wedding design, so the styling, bringing in the decor, the floral, the props, all of that kind of thing, it really could start from anywhere from around 3,000 upwards.
Okay, that's all right.
Yes,
I thought
absolutely.
I thought you were going to say much more.
Yeah, I mean,
that surprised me.
Don't get me wrong. That's probably very much your starting point, and we have to, suppose, be realistic about it. At the same time, there are people that will come to us and say, I'm not actually that worried too much about the styling, but I want the entertainment to be phenomenal, and I want the food to be this, and I want the wine selection to be that. So
you do all of that?
Absolutely, yes. For our planning clients, we do. Okay. So that's what I mean about in terms of establishing the budget. It's pulling out what then is important. If someone is not concerned remotely about flowers, I'm not going to push them to spend, £5,000 to £10,000 on flowers, but they maybe want to fly in a band that they have dreamt of for years, to be playing at their wedding reception. So it's just finding that balance.
So have you booked any biggies?
Well, we've had a few of the function band coming over for a few weddings recently, and they're fantastic. Right. They're very they work through your crowd during dinner, and it's very interactive, which I think there's a big push moving towards,
So what are the big trends then at the minute? So if we take weddings first of all, what are people looking for? I've just been invited to a woodland wedding.
Oh, fantastic!
Isn't that so nice?
Yes, absolutely.
There's talk about sleeping in a tent, a bell
you just
tent.
have to run with it. You have to get on board.
Really?
Embrace it.
Toilets. Anyway, keep going.
I think trends. Scales are bigger. People want a wow factor. I mean, there was chat through the pandemic that things were just going to be small scale forever. That people now loved, a dinner for 10 and it would never go back to the big scale weddings. And I always sort of thought, yes, it will. You know, people want to have a party. They want to celebrate. It's their big day. They want their friends and family there, you know. And so I think people can, I suppose, get overrun or overwhelmed with it too. But as long as it's under control, it's about walking in and having a real wow factor, whether that's something very much ceiling installations. That's a big trend that doesn't seem to be going anywhere, you know. And a lot of that will be floral based or key lighting.
So beautiful. I mean, just even looking at some of the images on your social media, and I would urge you to check it out because, you know, EP Design, I know the weddings, the website is under construction at the minute.
That's right, yes.
But the socials are there. Just have a look. And I mean, the flowers are so beautiful.
Oh, absolutely.
It actually reminds me of, Bridgerton.
Yes, yeah. And one of the key things that has definitely moved forward, I would say in the last even sort of 4 or 5 years, it used to be very much, say in your tablescape, a centrepiece, and that was pretty much it.
Oh yes, your table
Whereas
centrepiece.
now it is very much about the full table design. So that lovely layering effect. If you were going to a dinner party, you know, you would probably go that little bit of an extra mile. You'd have your lovely pressed linen, maybe in an accent colour, your charger plates, your patterned side plates, maybe coloured glassware, all of the layered candlelight. It's adding that kind of attention to detail just to give it that really lovely high-end finish that I think people are starting to appreciate now. And I suppose, you know, when you think about it, you're at the table for quite a length of time. It's your first impression when you sit down. So we're definitely, we're seeing people paying much more attention to their tables, and we encourage it. I personally love that sort of really full finish on a table.
So you were saying that you're planning all sorts of events across the island of Ireland. Do you ever go abroad?
We haven't yet, although it's definitely on the bucket list. So we have quite a lot of international clients who we will work with that will come and get married as in Ireland as a destination wedding. So that's even something we're starting to look at a little bit as well, but flipping it of the reverse, that we'll maybe travel with clients abroad to do the planning for them, you know, across the water.
Oh, definitely.
Which we could probably, you know, ease into
I'll
quite
come
nicely.
too if you want any help.
Along. Yeah.
You don't have to pay me.
It sounds glamorous,
I know,
you know,
it
but you'll be
always
down,
does.
you know, cleaning a dance floor on your hands and knees.
That's it.
And
I mean,
kind of
what
thing.
does it? How? Because I would work at a lot of events, and I see all the guys, you know, doing the AV and building the sets and the stages, and everybody's having a great time until the last man standing. But you can't take anything down until
Exactly.
that last
it, yes.
man has gone.
We're usually the first there and the last to leave.
So it's exhausting, and the hours aren't very family friendly, are they?
No, they're not, and you definitely need a very good support network, which I'm very lucky to have. You know, whether it's through mum and my dad, my mother-in-law is fabulous. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But you know, we do laugh anytime we would advertise, you know, for event crew or teams. We are inundated, you know, with applicants who think it's going to be an earpiece and a clipboard, you know, and and we have to really, you know, shatter dreams and illusions that it will be, you know, scrubbing a dance floor, it will be climbing a scaffold to start, you know, attaching 500 roses to a marquee ceiling, whatever it's going to be. It's labour intensive and it's long hours, but it's also really rewarding, you know. So I think you get through the long hours and the hard work, because at the end of the day, it's a really beautiful thing that you're creating and a really personal experience.
You've created such an incredible business, and you are the leader. You have started it all up. What kind of boss do you think you are?
Oh dear, do you know, I actually don't sit that comfortably with the word boss. I don't sort of feel like a boss. I aspire to lead my team. I do. I have definite room for improvement. I'm not great at confrontation and all of that kind of thing. It's not really in my personality. Thankfully, I rarely have to, which is lucky. But I think probably one of my strengths as a team leader is that I allow people to do what they do best. I am very aware of my own limitations. I know what I'm good at, but I'm very aware of what I'm not. So I like to surround myself with really good people who can take on the things that I'm not strong at. And we were joking about like the social media end of things and technology and that. That's not my strength. It's not really my thing. But I have a great team there in the office who are fantastic at it, you know, and put reels and TikToks and all that kind of stuff together. I sound like a real old lady there, not really knowing what they're called. But so I think just allowing people a wee bit of scope and a wee bit of creativity to take ownership of their role in the business has been a massive, massive thing to really push our business on.
And in terms of sort of managing, I would imagine when you're putting on events, I don't want to say disaster is never too far from around the corner, but you know, you do, as I said, have to be flexible.
Yeah.
Things go wrong. What's been the worst thing that you've had to deal with?
Oh, well, I'm trying to think. Thankfully, we haven't had too many, ever a big thing, I suppose. There's always lots and lots of little things that the client will never, ever know about. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast of an event. You know, there'll always be something that hasn't arrived on time, or something goes wrong with the food, whatever it might be. But we have... Our motto is just be completely over-prepared all the time.
So plan B, plan C.
Absolutely. I mean, we go as far as we have, you know, a staff meeting ahead of an event for a what-if conversation. And we literally try, you know, throw out,
do you do that?
If that can happen, what if this, what will you do? You know, who will you speak to? Where will you go? You can't cover every base, but you can cover a lot of them.
Belt and braces, and actually
Absolutely.
there's where the control freak is good. There's where the, if you weren't like that, there would be pandemonium. You couldn't run an events company.
I think it's, you know, turning up early, having too much stuff with you, you know, having, you know, excess
Extras.
stock, all of that kind of thing. Even again, going back to the staff, of having a really varied skill set of people with you. You know, if I remember one event, and it was back sort of in the early days. It was probably one of my first large corporate events, and we were doing kind of a winter wonderland type of an idea, and we had 10 to 12 foot sort of big light up LED trees going out. They were brand new, you know, straight out of the box, had all been tested. Got up. It was actually in the Titanic in Belfast, and about 10 of them just wouldn't work.
No.
And I just remember thinking, what am I going to do? And I barely had to say a word, and I just looked at, it was Leslie there, was one of my guys that was working with me that day, and all I had to do was nearly glance at him, and he was like, leave it with me, I'll sort it, just leave it with me. And he sorted it.
Love
I don't know how he sorted it.
So is
but
that what you
sorted it.
look for when you're recruiting somebody that's not a panicker and brings solutions?
Very much so. And I remember my first job with Lisney, said my background was law, it wasn't property. And my director at the time, after he gave me the position, said, we obviously interviewed a number of people who came from a property background, but I can teach you that. You know, we have systems in place, we're confident in our training programs, I can teach you all of that. We want someone who's going to bring something else to the table. So it's something that's just always stuck with me. And I think anytime people are coming in for an interview, or if we're recruiting staff, I sort of think it's not that they have to have a background in events. In fact, if they, you know, have had a career in floral design, or a makeup artist, or they're a fantastic office manager with, you know, fantastic organisational skills, that appeals to me nearly more so.
The organised person.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely, Kate. Honestly, this 40 minutes has absolutely flown by, Julianne. I've absolutely loved talking to you about an area I know very little about. The purpose of this podcast, and I ask this question to everyone as a final question, is to inspire existing business owners, yes, and ambitious entrepreneurs to grow their business by offering insight into the success of businesses such as EP Design Limited. But what advice would you give to people who may have a business idea but no idea where to begin, are unsure as to whether the risk is worth taking?
I think probably the best piece of advice I could give myself if I was going back when I started, is to just jump in with both feet, and don't worry maybe so much about what the worst thing that could happen is. Try and focus on what's the very best thing that could come from this. But I suppose needed to caveat that slightly with, you know, do your homework. Don't be naive going into it that business is going to happen overnight. It is hard work, and you have to be prepared and conscientious that you're going to put in the hours, put in the effort, have very little social life, you know, become, I suppose, a bit of a bore for a few years. But knowing that if you stick with it and you want to create something that has longevity, then it's worth it, and you'll reap the rewards if you're prepared to put in the time and the effort.
What are you most proud of?
Oh, probably my mind always goes to, not even anything to do with EP, my mind definitely goes to my 3 kids. You know, they're everything to me. But EP based, I'm just really proud of the team that we've created and the community that we've created. I hope, you know, I strive to make it a lovely place to work. There's a bit of crack, there's a bit of banter, you know, and everyone has a bit of fun, but at the same time, they work hard and they know what they're there to do. And I have a lot of trust in the team around me.
You're proud of yourself.
Yeah.
You've achieved a lot.
Oh, well.
I know we're not good at answering that, are we?
I know. In fact, we had a conversation in the office there the other day about, women taking compliments and said, you're looking great. Oh, no, I'm not.
This whole thing, pre-mark, £5.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, I'm getting there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an incredible story, and do check out the social medias for EP Design Limited, website coming shortly. And Julianne, thank you so much for being my guest on the Public Eye podcast.
Thank you, Sarah.
And for everyone else, tune in to the next episode. Bye-bye. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team, using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.